Top underrated Isekai anime.
見ての通り、俺は思っただけで何でも殺せる。何かしようとしたら殺すよ。
Okay, this is a bit of a strange one. My instant death ability is so overpowered. No one in this other world stands a chance against me. Is pretty much a full-blown Isekai parody, one that specifically tears down the theme's over-reliance on OP characters. The anime is ridiculous, repetitive, devoid of anything resembling tension, and features surprisingly uninteresting protagonists. Along with all his other classmates, Yogairai arrives in a fantasy world, where he is initially left for dead alongside a girl named Tamachika, as they do not seem to receive any powers like the other students. However, in truth, Yogairai is already a Lovecraftian monster that can kill anybody and anything with a single thought. My instant death ability was the most polarizing Isekai anime of 2024. Nearly all the humor revolves around a character archetype arriving on the scene, only to be immediately wiped out by Yogairai. He even kills a few powerful characters by accident. As comedy is particularly subjective, this show's value will vary greatly from person to person. As such, this anime is worth a try, just to see if it falls on somebody's good or bad side.
Tachibana Yuki. Shine.
我にレッドブルを捧げよう。うちのご神体エルダ、うちの神様はダメなやつです。私エルフだし、ご利益ないけどな。
Compared to its more popular sibling, Reverse Isekai is underutilized as a concept. At most, each season might have one anime that fits the theme, and they tend to not attract anywhere near as much attention as the standard variant. Case in point, Otaku Elf, a charming 2023 series that beat Frieren and Delicious in Dungeon in capitalizing on the recent boom in elf-driven content. Summoned to Earth centuries before the events of the story, Elda lives as a Tokyo Shrine's goddess, with the Kagane family's shrine maidens acting as her caretakers. Currently, Koito is in charge of supporting the timid elf, and she has been trying to push Elda out of her comfort zone. While they do not always get along perfectly, they have a generally wholesome and supportive relationship, one built on mutual respect. Otaku Elf is pleasant, surprisingly mature, and frequently funny.
じゃあ私との約束。私と一緒に東京を見て回ろう。
Although not filled with classics, the winter 2025 season told a few good new Isekai stories. From Bureaucrat to Villainous, Dad's Been Reincarnated and Zenshu are both fun shows that fans of the theme should seek out, but they cannot be described as underrated Isekai anime. In comparison, The Red Ranger Becomes an Adventurer in Another World does not reach the same heights as either of those series, and it is pretty far from a must-watch. Yet, the anime warrants a mention for two reasons. Firstly, it is consistently amusing. Nothing amazing by any stretch of the imagination, but the characters are likable, the action has a few clever moments, and the writing can be witty at times. Secondly, and most importantly, it is filled with Sentai goodness. Honestly, this show is primarily a recommendation for Sentai rather than Isekai fans, even though it should still manage to entertain the latter. As the title suggests, a Red Ranger lands headfirst in a fantasy world, and he decides to just continue being a hero. As he is powered by friendship, he eventually forms a party with three archetypes, all of whom are allowed to shine.
第二聖剣ドラグラース来い絆ベースト伴奏合体マキシマム絆カイザーなんだこれは
Whether the ability to see spirits is a blessing or a curse depends very much on the story. For college student Aoi, it's a little bit of both. Aoi is walking past a shrine when a spirit sitting there asks her for food. She feeds him, only for the spirit, an ogre named Odana, to kidnap her and take her away to the hidden realm where all spirits dwell. It is there that Aoi learns that her grandfather owed the ogre a debt, and Odana intends to take Aoi's hand in marriage as compensation. Instead, Aoi convinces the ogre to let her work at his inn. It might not have the depth of a great psychological anime, but Kakaro, Bed and Breakfast for Spirits, is still among the finest isekai around.
So その弓で僕を射殺すつもりかね粋な計らいじゃないかさあしっかりとここを狙いたまえ
Overall, summer 2024 was a pretty terrible season for isekai anime. Quality Assurance in Another World has interesting ideas and is worth a watch if somebody is specifically looking for a trapped-in-a-game anime. From the season's new series, No Longer Allowed in Another World was pretty comfortably the best, despite being far from an all-time great. Frequently funny and surprisingly touching at times, this anime initially starts as a full-blown parody that happens to feature a protagonist very clearly inspired by Osamu Dazai, poking fun at tropes like Trukuin and the danger of OP Otherworlders. No Longer Allowed in Another World has a wicked sense of humor that is carried entirely by its nihilistic MC and his mostly likable supporting players. While losing some momentum during its middle portion, this series rediscovers its way during the final stretch, especially when it begins to tell more personal stories revolving around other summoned heroes. Ishura is a difficult isekai anime to get into, but it is worth sitting through a few rough episodes to get to the good parts. Rather than adhering to convention, the show utilizes a unique storytelling structure by basically rejecting a standard protagonist. Instead, a bunch of overpowered characters are spotlighted in half-episode segments, all in preparation for an eventual conflict that will bring all these beings together. The first half of Season 1 cycles through roughly a dozen characters who exist in a dark fantasy world that is on the verge of a war between an empire and an independent state that is looking to break away under the banner of a false demon king. While these episodes can be confusing since they do not connect all that well, they build up to an explosion of action during the second half of the season, which is dedicated entirely to the war. At that point, Ishura becomes an action epic devoted entirely to OP versus OP characters, and it is awesome. Season 2 is even better than its predecessor, although that mostly has to do with the latter setting the groundwork.
あの娘は災いである。このまま放置していては村に不幸が訪れる。あの娘を殺すのだ。星なしは神が見捨てた子だ。どうしてそれがうちにいる。
あんたなんか生まれてこなければよかった。
Underrated might not be the perfect word to describe the Weakest Tamer began a journey to pick up trash, as the anime is well-liked for the most part. However, the series spent most of winter 2024 just a few steps away from significant momentum, inspiring occasional but inconsistent discourse. By the end of March 2024, this slow life story had grown into one of the season's most memorable new isekai anime. More importantly, The Weakest Tamer began a journey to pick up trash presents a surprisingly refreshing take on the theme, and it is even a great option for people who have grown tired of the typical tropes. In a world where somebody's value is determined by their stars, which essentially refers to their skill level, Ivy's starless nature makes her worthless. Knowing that death awaits, the young girl runs away from her village, and she sets out to survive while living in the wilderness and making the most of her weak tamer ability. Intense as its early sections are, The Weakest Tamer began a journey to pick up trash eventually slips into a relaxing slice-of-life rhythm that allows Ivy's warmth and innocence to shine through. Studio Masket's animation is also shockingly good.
ここが異世界かよ。
A salad bowl of Eccentrics flips the script and teleports powerful girls from their fantasy world to Earth, with one of them literally falling on a private detective while he is in the middle of a case. A princess on the verge of meeting a harsh end, Sarah uses her magical abilities to escape to Tokyo, and her guard follows soon after. While the latter spends her first days on Earth as part of the homeless community, Sarah quickly teams up with Susuke, a former cop turned PI. So, A Salad Bowl of Eccentrics shares a few similarities with Hinamatsuri, one of the best reverse isekai anime. The first few episodes are quite derivative of the more popular show, but the anime eventually succeeds in refining a unique identity. Sarah and Susuk's dynamic is wholesome, but Livia's storylines generally steal the show. The knight finds herself elevated to a deity by a cult, a bizarre plot that produces most of the anime's biggest laughs. While hardly a masterpiece, a salad bowl of Eccentrics is just a fun little...
私、次の人生は普通に友達を作って普通に生きたい。だから能力はその世界の平均値でお願いします。
Genius can be isolating, separating someone from those who are less capable, something Misato Kurihara knows well. When Misato is given the opportunity to reincarnate in a fantasy world, all she wants is to be like everyone else. Unfortunately, the magical powers with which Misato is gifted are the average of all of those in the entire world, making her exceptionally powerful. Like Sword Art Online and similar anime, Didn't I Say to Make My Abilities Average in the Next Life? Is funny and self-aware but capable of delivering on serious moments. While it differs significantly from the light novels upon which it is based, the anime has its own strengths. As an isekai with an engaging female protagonist and plenty of in-jokes and references to other anime, Didn't I Say to Make My Abilities Average in the Next Life achieves its goal.
だから好きでこんな力持ってるんじゃないってば。私能力は平均値でって言ったよね。神って何ですか？
Overall, 2023 was a solid year for isekai anime, with The Eminence in Shadow and Mushoku Tensei taking center stage. Series like the most heretical Last Boss Queen, Why Raeliana Ended Up at the Duke's Mansion, and Campfire Cooking in Another World with My Absurd Skill are also pretty good and could arguably qualify as underrated shows. However, Kamikatsu deserves a mention since it has a higher entry barrier. Studio Palette's anime leaves a confusing first impression as it features terrible CGI animation, a stylistic and comedic decision that might just seem bad initially. Only after a few episodes does it become clear that Kamikatsu has a peculiar sense of humor, one that grows more absurd and deranged as the season progresses. At the end of the day, this anime is the definition of an acquired taste, but if someone likes it, they are likely to love it.
僕は御霊、君の神様だ。